Awesome. We are officially live. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Chiropractic Compass podcast and Facebook Lives brought to you by the legendary Chiropractor online community. We are here tonight with your host, myself, Johnny Reuter, and our lovely, lovely guest, Dr. Brian Dooley, who is out in South Carolina in Spartanburg, South Carolina. And he is the professor of philosophy at Sherman College of Chiropractic and absolutely loves and knows chiropractic philosophy. So if you have any questions throughout this feed, drop them below. I'll be sure to ask him. And he's actually driving right now, if you can't tell. And so he was kind enough to join us tonight. And this is actually a first. There's a lot of firsts this week, but this is a first. So I'm pumped for you, Doc. Thank you for joining us.
Oh, I appreciate it. This is my mobile office because in the trunk of my car, I always carry my table. Because when I go meet my daughter, which is where I'm on my way to, I've adjusted her in many parking lots.
Absolutely. I love it. So, Doc, if you don't mind sharing with us how you got into chiropractic, how you got to where you're at right now, and just kind of fill us in on your chiropractic journey thus far.
Okay. Oddly enough, the way I first heard chiropractic had to do with a naked man statue in Los Angeles, California, believe it or not. And where that came from was in 1984, the Olympics were held in LA. And there were two bronze nudes out in front of the LA Coliseum. And the guy was Dr. Terry Schrader, who's a chiropractor and was on the water polo team. And now I think he coaches the water polo team. But I remember as a kid, so there was a story about them. Then a story came out about him in Sports Illustrated. And he has like 31 chiropractors in his family. And so that just sort of, all right, so there's a profession type of thing. And then I hurt my back in 1994. I was in the movie business, carrying a big fan. Went to PT and all that type of stuff. Was told that I was going to have back pain for the rest of my life. And that was just the way it is, and do these stretches every day. And so that was what I was told. So, all right, fine. Because at the time, I really didn't know much about chiropractic. Somebody said, well, go see one. Well, I don't know. Maybe I will. Maybe I won't. So fast forward, went from Atlanta. We were up in South Carolina, as we are now. And after a couple, I got tired of getting laid off in corporate America. I thought, well, heck, if I'm not going to make it, I want it to be because of me, not because of somebody else. And so let me run my own business. And so I was actually driving by a chiropractor's office, and I said, well, I can do that because blue-collar state, what do you go to school for? 3, 6, 9 months tops, right? Because I didn't know anything about it. And so went online. So I had known about life because we had lived in Atlanta for a little while. When the internet was relatively new, there was some place in Davenport, Iowa. And I thought, why would you ever go to Davenport, Iowa? So not knowing any of the history. And then I did see there was a school in Spartanburg, South Carolina. My wife is from Gaffney. And for those that have driven down I-85, Gaffney is where the peach is. And so I said, did you know about the school? And she said, no. And so, well, I'm going to check it out. And so I went up to whatever their showcase day was back then. And Dr. David Koch was the president back then. And so he gave me my first health talk. And so he was the first person that started telling me about innate intelligence. So I didn't know anything about innate up until then, or at least not anything I'd intellectualized. And so as he's talking, I quickly forgot about coming up to fixing necks and backs to now unleashing the potential of people with innate running free of the vertebral subluxation. And so that got me to Sherman. Then in 2005, so this is like my 9th career, finally found one that stuck. And then I was associated for 2 years. Then I opened up my own practice in 2007, so I still have my private practice, but then I do work, it's considered full-time at Sherman. So I work at, I've been teaching for about, I think it's my 6th year. And so I teach philosophy, the 33 principles. I have taught chiropractic history, case history, patient ed, which is our day 1, day 2, and our health talk, and then media communications. And then we just started a business department at Sherman College, and I'm the chair of that. And so what we're trying to do is develop a system that's cohesive all the way through the program, that when a student graduates, they're not going to have the uncertainty and the questions that most of us had when we all graduated. And so that they're able to hop in and get to business right away. We call it our G10 program, with the goal of having students debt-free within 10 years and hopefully saving up some money, and then hopefully even giving it back to the profession somehow.
Absolutely. I love it. I love it, Doc. I love your story. Dr. Koch actually he still teaches philosophy at Life University, and he is a great professor, a great man, and I learned a tremendous amount from him. So I'm honored to hear you mention his name. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, and he looks like Dee Dee Palmer these days.
Yes, he does. Yes, he does. As long as I've known him, he's looked like that. So
yeah. He was a little more clean shaven as the president.
Yeah, I can imagine.
but now he looks like a philosopher.
Yes, absolutely. And that's phenomenal. What a story to come up with in the chiropractic profession, and to end up, at Sherman, going to school there and then teaching there now for 6 years, like you said. That's pretty impressive. And, I think that adding, kind of to transition into our topics for tonight, of chiropractic business and chiropractic principles, we can kind of tie them together in this new program that Sherman is starting. If you want to talk a little bit more about that, I think it's really, really interesting that, Life University has some business classes, and they kind of try to do the same initiative. And I think a lot of chiropractic schools who recognize the benefit of business are really trying to implement that, right? So what do you see being the biggest struggles for chiropractic students nowadays, that they aren't becoming debt-free within 10 years?
Well, I mean that's the big thing. So you're saddled, and I graduated 2005, so not that long ago, but you've got a whole bunch more debt coming out of it than I had. And I had more than other people had. And the challenge is you have this debt. So of course the thought is, I got to make money, right? I got to at least pay back that loan check, let alone eat, let alone pay for a place you're going to live, pay for your office if you're starting out on your own. So it adds up really, really fast. And so having a system that's, I guess, tried and true, that works is huge, because you're going to take, when you graduate, I think it's NYCC, if I'm correct, I may be wrong, but they send out a survey to every graduate of chiropractic schools all over. And by far and large, when they ask, what do you wish you had more of, business is way ahead. So we're taught how to be clinicians and how to locate, analyze, and correct the subluxation, but we're not taught how to get the people and how to keep the people, right? So, I look at Dr. Gilardi, the founder of Sherman, as my model, because he practiced for 60 years, but for the last 40, he didn't take a new patient unless they were married in or born in, because his people stayed in his office. So they just stuck with him that long. And so I think that's a fantastic model for all of us. And the nice thing about that is if you're keeping whatever segment of patients you're keeping, you're not really in competition with other chiropractors, because not enough people are being seen. So this way you open up wherever you want to open, get in the black as quick as you possibly can, pay back the loan. I look at the loan as somebody's making an investment in you and I. In the end of the day, they're going to way overpay for what we're going to give to humanity, or way underpay for what we're going to give to humanity. And that's how I look at my loan payment, right? So that's something that somebody invested in me, and they way underpaid for what I'm giving. So I look at it as, it's not so bad, is what it is. And then you just knock it out. But again, I'm almost 15, so I'm 14 years out of practice or out of school, and I'm still dealing with it, because I didn't have a system to make me as successful as possible. So when I started to associate, and this is the thing with associateships, I get the idea is, you're working on somebody else's dime, but do you, if you're looking that way, please, in your contract, have that there's some sort of business training. As chiropractors, we get excited because they'll say, well, just check and adjust, as many people as you can.
Yeah.
Well, that's great because that's what we do. But in order for me to do that, I got to have people on the table. And so how do I go out and get those things? That's where a good business program is going to help you. Because, there's a lot. If you look at the corporate structure of anywhere, of Apple, of Walmart, of anywhere. How many departments are at Life that run the university?
Yeah.
So you got the faculty, the students, the janitors, the president, the chancellor, the registrar, the financial aid, whatever else goes on in the business office. Well, there's different people leading all those departments, and we have those same departments in our businesses, and it's you and I are the ones that are running those things.
Right. Absolutely. Absolutely. And so I want to ask you, do you think that the business that we're teaching nowadays in chiropractic school, a lot of people argue that it's kind of outdated? I would beg to differ, but a lot of people say that a lot of times that it is outdated, and people come back to teach it because, they were there once, they either failed or were very successful, one or the two, and they come back to say, hey, look, here's my mistakes, but are those the same mistakes that modern day, us coming out are going to make?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, a business is a business. How to run it is really no different. I mean, for instance, part of what you and I are going to do is sales. And so we have to sell our service. And my grandfather he died in 1992. But he was in sales for wood pulp, and I watched how he was very successful at what he did, and it was all about relationships. And so it wasn't so much, oftentimes he would take me and my brother, and we would go on some trip, and we'd have lunch with some stranger. I never heard the words paper pulp at these meetings, but what he was doing was making connections and building relationships, and it's really no different today. The issue is we have to be ready to work. I think there's the misnomer that chiropractors work 3 or 4 days a week and all drive Ferraris. You might be adjusting 4 days a week, but you're working on your practice those other days.
Absolutely.
And if you are working, so that's the first thing coming out of school is in my office, I'm in the office 4 days a week, but that's adjusting. I'm working on it the rest of it. And so people need to understand that coming out of school. And then, a lot of concepts that worked 30 years ago still work. You might argue, well, I'm not going to put an ad in a newspaper. Well, okay, but it's not much different than your Facebook ad, how you're going to put something together. I would argue that the mediums are different. Obviously, when I got into practice, Facebook wasn't around yet. You learn how to use Facebook. So just what you and I are doing, so you could do this with your patients. So do Facebook Lives instead of them coming to the office, sit in your house. I'm going to be talking, interact, ask questions. So it's no different. The health talk is the health talk. Maybe the medium you choose to use might be different than any business that's has been able to roll with the times and say, allergy is here or this process is here. So let me see how I can use that in order to get my message out more efficiently.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I think what you said, we are selling our service. In the end, we are selling our service. We're selling chiropractic to the masses, and business in that sense hasn't changed in centuries. And so I think that we can apply that and what your grandfather did to what we're doing today. And I 100% agree with that. So sticking with the chiropractic business now, what do you recommend if you were to go back and put yourself in the student's shoes? Like you said, you're 14, 16 years out or so. If you were to go back and put yourself in the student's shoes, what would you do differently to set yourself up successfully for business in the future?
The first thing is an understanding that there's stuff I don't know. And that person that's in front of me, I think that's always been the, I don't know what you ever want to dig at faculty, especially chiropractic colleges, where they're all people that weren't successful in practice. Well, I'm still practicing. I mean, so I've been doing it. I know at Sherman, 75% of our instructors still have some sort of a practice. So they're still in the trenches doing it. oddly enough, I mean, the way I got into teaching was when I was a student. Dr. Mike Klessereth was at Sherman at the time, and I asked him, how'd you get into teaching? And he said, well, I can make a bigger impact on the world. And so you look at let's say you have 1,000 people in your office, right? You have 1,000 folders that you've affected one way or another. And I've been averaging, I've been at Sherman. So let's say 6 years, that's 12 graduations we probably average around 40 people. And so what's 40 times that? That can be like 1,200 people. Yeah. Times that by 1,000. If those offices get 1,000 people, I've affected the lives of 120,000 people, yeah. Let alone my 1,000 that I got. And so to me, to get into teaching was to affect the world on a much bigger scale than I could ever do in my office. You never go into it for the money. And that's part of the reason I still have my office, but that's okay. That's my choice that I made and how I've chosen to serve and give back to the profession. Yeah. Every one of us ought to give back to the profession in some way. But I highly encourage you, if you can get the Ferrari, go get the Ferrari. Go take the big vacations and do all those things. But don't forget, the schools where you came from. Don't forget other students, upcoming students. Don't forget your state national associations. Because if we don't support the profession, then the profession is going to be radically different than it is even now.
Yeah. Yeah. And I want to talk to you a little bit about that too, because I think that's really important for us to touch on. And when I interviewed Dr. Liam Schubel, he mentioned, the three big things that you have to support in chiropractic are the education, the research, and the politics. So right. From your standpoint, from your perspective, teaching kids, are students involved in these organizations? And if not, how do we get more and more students involved in these organizations?
You would like to say because of the cause that they're going to get into the organization. To go back to the last question, it's hard to get people interested in business because of the chiropractic program as it's laid out now, right? Because the classes that you're taking and with the intensity that you take at the fire hose of information, you're just trying to survive and get through midterms. The last thing you want to think about are S Corps, LLCs, or anything else, or thinking about your why, or think about learn how to journal, which all successful people do, or learn about these types of things. You're like, all right, I'll get that later because I'm dealing with this type of stuff.
Yeah.
And so that goes into, I think, the political organizations at the school. It's got to be student-driven. The faculty should be there to advise and sort of herd the cats a little bit. But a student just has to be excited to do it, and they have to understand that it's important. But that's hard for a student to get because of what you're in the middle of. And so I totally understand that it's just a sledgehammer of information coming down on you. And the last thing you want to think about is saving the profession. You're just trying to graduate. And not only graduate, you're just trying to make it through the quarter, for heaven's sake.
Yeah.
So what we need to do, I'm also in the IFCO with Dr. Schubel, and what we're hoping to put together is a curriculum that students can use of different facets, not just, it could be something as simple as here's what Robert's rules are. So if you are in a meeting, you don't look like a goofball in the meeting. You know how a meeting should be run. You can call people on it. You just know how a meeting's run. And so that's just the start, but having a whole curriculum that is other than things when that graduates. Your session plan for that, you need to have a curriculum, I think, in place, and I'm glad the IFCO is working on it. Hopefully we can get it done before it's too terrible long.
Absolutely. And I think you guys will. I think the IFCO is doing great things. You and Dr. Schubel and all of your board of directors, I think, are doing amazing things for this profession. And I thank you as a student for that as well, because, we have the ICA, we have the ACA, and the IFCO, I would consider right at the top with them. And as a political opportunity for students and for docs to actually engage with. And I think that's really important. So with that being said, when it comes to research, what are you thinking about, this is kind of a side tangent, but, Sherman's very subluxation based. Life is very subluxation based. Life West is very subluxation based. What are your thoughts, obviously, that you're a member of the IFCO, of vertebral subluxation complex being removed from, the vernacular of chiropractic?
Well, there were no longer chiropractors. That's the end of that. I mean,
I think I lost you, Doc. Can you say that one more time?
That's what we do. What makes us vertebral. Am I there?
Yeah, I think you're cutting in and out. That's all.
Hang on. All right. So taking vertebral subluxation out makes this no longer chiropractic and distinct.
Yeah.
Then we're, and there's into care, but you do what you do, no matter. So get that stinking thinking out of your head, students. Always act as if he's donating platelets and using that money to pay for his care. And the reason why he's doing that, you're seeing the change in his life. That's well beyond, and so I don't want to ever lose that. And we lose that if we're only dealing with ouchies.
Yeah, absolutely. So to kind of tie this into chiropractic principles, let's talk about. I want you to list your 3 favorite chiropractic principles and why they're your favorites.
Number one, I think, is the major universal intelligence. That's where everything starts. So for me, that looks. You look at the universe. I can use evidence observationally and say it is an organized place. If it's organized, there has to be an intelligence. So I extrapolate that down to my patient. You have an intelligence that's organizing you. The only way you can do it is with a nervous system free of interference of subluxation. I like 15. There's no motion without force. So you're not going to get anywhere unless you put a little effort into it. And so I think that's a big thing. Running a business is, the people use the word hard. It's challenging. It's a lot of work, but I don't know if the pieces themselves are necessarily hard. There's just a bunch of them. And because there's so many, you got to have processes and systems in place so they work as well as possible. So that would come to, you need to train yourself. You need to train your staff, and then continually do that, because you will get out of whatever you're going to get out of with the work you put into it. So wherever your practice is going to move, so the motion of it is going to be directly proportional to the amount of effort you put into it. And so what I like about that is my success or failure is up to me completely.
Yeah.
And so then let's see. I do like Principle 24, because if we're not taking care of ouchies, what are we doing? And that limitations a matter. And, that's important to know that we're not fixing the patient's symptom. We're making sure that their body's just functioning as high as it can. Most of the time, there's going to be symptomatic improvement. But what happens if it's not? Does that patient need to quit chiropractic care? I mean, you may make an argument to relook at an x-ray or relook at their palpation or whatever it is, but if everything's checking out, but there's something else going on. So maybe they need another intervention or whatever it is, but at the end of the day, they're going to be coming to us because we're changing their life. We can only do so much. We get blamed, well, chiropractic doesn't work. And then you look, well, they haven't followed their plan of care at all. And it's like, well, that's probably the reason.
Right.
So, I do like that one, because not that it gives us an out, but there is an explanation of, somebody's going to be as good as they can get. Our job is to keep them at least there. So I show a video in class about a gentleman who's a quadriplegic, and A, the argument is he's not getting out of the wheelchair. B, the argument is, well, maybe there just hasn't been enough time, so you never know. But his life was improved because he did get his neck adjusted. Yeah. C1, it was C1, so his break was below that. But so he's not getting out of the wheelchair, so there's a limit there. But he'll tell you he's smiling again, he's happy again, and he's living life again as best as he can do it. And that's my job. And so that's why I like Principle 24, is just having that understanding that I don't have to cure everything. My job is just to make sure that they're living the best life possible, given whatever choices they're making. Hopefully I can guide them to make some better choices about certain things. Number one is you got to have your spine checked regularly.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that what you were saying with everything, it all ties back to quality of life. And I think that a lot of times is what chiropractors not necessarily forget about, but it's what we're really good at. And we're really good at bringing people back that quality of life that they once had or that they never thought they could have, right? And I think that we need to keep that in the back of our minds, especially when we talk about the chiropractic principles. So as a student, if there's a student listening right now that isn't going to a philosophically sound institution, what are your recommendations for them and the vitality of the chiropractic principles in their life? What would you say to them?
For me, the principles are my buoys in the channel. So they keep me from running on the rocks. And so all I have to do is when I'm making a decision, I will run it through the lens of, am I serving the chiropractic principles? And if I am, I do it. And if I'm not, I don't do it. And that doesn't mean what I'm not doing is a bad thing. It's just not for me in my office. You can handle another different thing. So in my example, I used to have a massage therapist that was an independent contractor in the office. And, a very good friend of mine who, very straight chiropractor is like, well, why is that person here? And his point was, you may be sending a mixed message. It's like, well, that's interesting. And so, but I was getting to the point where I have 2 rooms in my office. I was getting busy. And so when I started teaching, practice took a hit because I was, I went from 32 hours a week to 9, and now I'm 12. But, as I'm building practice back up, I needed the room. So I said, well, it's time for that person to leave. Good person, gives a great massage. But what I did was just clearing that out. My practice is right now I'm seeing more than I've ever seen since I've been teaching. And we're continuing to grow. And it's because I'm serving the one purpose of chiropractic, and those principles are keeping me there. So I'm a squirrel guy, so I'll find something shiny and let me go look at that for a little bit. So the principles prevent me from doing that because, on the other side of the buoys are the rocks.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that when we doubt the principles of chiropractic is when we kind of get in trouble as chiropractors, especially if we tend to be more philosophically sound or dependent on the philosophy of chiropractic. And I think that a lot of docs who I've spoken to on not only on these interviews, but also in person at chiropractic events and seminars, they always tell me, they share this huge story with me. And then it always ties back, right, to the chiropractic principles. And they were like, you know what, I remembered this principle and it brought me back to that. And you know what, I served them out of the abundance of my heart, and that's all I could do. And I realized that, and I stepped out of the way, right? And I think that there's a lot of power in the chiropractic principles that way.
Oh, it's huge. I mean, I look at it, you just take the major premise, the last word of it is existence, right?
Yeah.
And that's what we're doing for our patients. Listen, you can take morphine and be out of pain, right? And lots of people are taking opioids to get out of pain, and how's that working for us?
Yeah.
But when you create a better existence for somebody, that changes their life, pain or no pain. And, when you hear the stories of, I'm playing with my grandkids again, or I'm ready to do things when I was so scared of doing it because of what might happen. And, you hear crazy stories. And because I was focused on the principle of chiropractic, that basically at the end of the day, the body works better with a proper nerve supply. Because I focused on that, you're just changing the lives of people left and right.
Yeah, absolutely. So Doc, I know you're probably getting to where you got to be, and we're going up on about 30 minutes here, and I don't want to keep you too long, obviously, but what are some action steps students and docs can take now, tonight, and start applying tomorrow, not only in their own practice, but also in their mental game, going back to chiropractic school tomorrow to start a new day?
I still like the idea of getting Stevenson's textbook and start with that one. So if you're going to pick a green book, pick that one to read. It works super, super well. And get together with other chiropractors and discuss the principles. What do they mean? Because the downside of the principles would be that sometimes, the language might be different. And so let's discuss it and get together, having Facebook Lives with people to have a chat room where you can talk about these things, I think is the thing. So it's learning the principles. So if you're at a not as philosophical school, go find events that are. If you want to know what they am, feel free to Facebook me, and I'll gladly shoot you some of the ones that I go, because they're all over the country. So wherever your school is, there's a principled group out there, and go find like people. I think when I got out in school, I thought I was on an island, and I was, because I put myself there. And so if there's a tip that for people that are in school now, find whoever your mentors are be. And that doesn't necessarily mean a practice management coach. It could, but find your mentors, and your mentors are going to be classmates, right? What do you do in this situation? What do you do in this situation? And, and the beauty of Facebook now is I don't have to do it with just the guys and the ladies that are in my town. I can do it with people all over the country that we're just a group of people that jive with, and we can do it online, and just like you and I are doing.
Yeah.
And so, start reading them. Pureandpowerful.com, www.pureandpowerful.com has got a list of the principles on there if somebody wants to read them. Because the green books are a little bit tough to read at times, there's the blue books by Joe Strauss that he wrote in the 80s and the 90s, where he tried to modernize the language. And his books are a lot shorter than a lot of the green books. So start with those, because those might be easier to read. And then Dr. Rob Sinitz wrote a great textbook about chiropractic philosophy. I think he wrote his in 2014, so it's pretty current. Read Dr. Koch's introduction and see how he's wanting to reword the principles and reorder them a bit, because I think that's a tremendous achievement that he did. Because, and I'll be the first one to say it, I'm a BJ Palmer guy, but you know what? BJ, it didn't end in 1961. So we need to take where BJ was, and we can develop our philosophy, which may require a rewording or a reordering of the principles. I don't know. So that's why we explore these things. Out of school, you can do your diplomate. You can get your philosophy diplomate to really, really know the philosophy. What I would urge people, if you're not familiar with the philosophy, is don't criticize what you don't know. Mm-hmm. So just put what your opinions may be, just put it on a shelf. I'm not saying get rid of it, but then look into it and just read some stuff and say, boy, can that be true? And so, I'm happy to talk to whoever. As I said, I like talking chiropractic. I'll give you my take on it. And you can decide whether you like it or not. My job is not to convince you. My job is just to tell you what I feel, and here's the evidence I have behind it. And then you're going to decide whether you agree with it or not. So that's up to you.
Yeah. Great closing remarks, Doc. I appreciate those. So with all that being said, I think the major takeaways here are connect with other students, other doctors who are not only like-minded to yourself, but also like-minded to your philosophy, your beliefs, and what you go with chiropractic. So thank you, Doc. Go to pureandpowerful.com if you want to read a little bit of an introduction of the 33 principles, and also check out and reach out to Dr. Brian Dooley for any of your philosophical concerns and or questions or observations you might have. He is a phenomenal phenomenal resource. And I'm honored that you are on the show tonight, Doc. Thank you for being here.
Oh, thank you. Thank you for asking. And here's the other thing. I don't care that you go to Life. I don't care that somebody else goes to Life West or Northwestern, right? So that's for the admissions department to say which school is the greatest, and that's their job. But our job is to become chiropractors and to lean on each other. So it's okay to talk to students or alumni or whoever with other schools.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree more. So a shameless plug to end this talk is to head to thelegendarychiropractor.com for all of your chiropractic needs. It is a virtual one-stop shop for everything chiropractic. And last but not least, we will be launching our job board come April 28th. So if you're looking, Dr. Dooley spoke on this a little bit earlier in the video, but please check out thelegendarychiropractor.com for all of your needs. Awesome, Doc. Thank you so much for being with us. I'm glad you made it safely, it looks like, to your daughter.
Yeah, we're eating some chilies tonight.
Awesome. I love it, Doc. Have a wonderful evening and enjoy some sun, and enjoy the rest of the week this week.
Thank you. You do the same.
Thanks, Doc. Appreciate you.
All righty. Bye-bye.
Bye now.